One of the things I learned really 1971 and then repeatedly is that surprises that happen in my lifetime happened to me. Many cases were for things that didn't happen in my lifetime but happened in prior lifetimes, such as in 1971 I was clerking on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. August 15th, Nixon severs the relationship between gold and the dollar, so essentially defaulting. And I walked on the stock exchange. I said financial crisis, and I would expect it to be down a lot. It was up a lot. I studied history and found that the exact same thing happened in March 5th, 1933, with Roosevelt doing the same thing basically on the radio. And then I understood things better. So what happened for me over the last number of years is there are three big things that are happening in my lifetime that didn't happen. And I actually found that with research five. So the first is the amount of debt creation and monetization of that and how it's carrying through the system. The second is the amount of internal political, social, economic conflict that is now going on. And the third is the rising of a great power to challenge the existing world order and the existing world power, China, and the geopolitical in which, when I was born in 1949, and 4 years after the New World Order began in 45, and the United States, of course, was a much more dominant country then, had 80% of the world's gold, 50% of the world's economy, the only monopoly on military power because of nuclear and all of that. And it's declined on a relative basis. And that led me to do research, which I needed to do the last 500 years of research to follow. I wanted to study the rise and decline of currencies, reserve currencies, and their empires. And I went back. And in doing that, I also discovered that their acts of nature actually had bigger effects than the first three of those, even with the wars, because of droughts, floods, and pandemics. And I know that you really have thoughts about climate change and its effects. So I'll be interested in hearing those because I think that's a factor. And then number five was the greatest, of course, is man's capacity to adapt and invent, because in one way or another, if you look at that, per capita income rises, living standards rise over periods of time. But these big cycles and these big events are dominant. So those are, I think almost everything can fall into those five categories, so that's how I look at it.
Just to quickly get into a few, how do you see those categories playing out right now? Is there anything specific that comes to mind?
I think that we're in a period in which there's a supply and demand for debt and credit that is because one man's debts are another man's assets. And there's a supply demand for credit that is having an effect on making us move into a stagflation kind of environment. In other words, the trade-offs between the two will become more difficult. But I think that number two influence, the political, is the most important. What I mean by that is I think we have been used to being in an environment in which economics ruled. You'd have a global economy, and those who could produce items more efficiently or cheaper would get the business, and they would raise their living standards, and other places, so it was a global competition, largely run by economic considerations, and resources would shift that way. I think we're now in that doesn't exist as much that way, and there's been a transition to an ideological allocation of resources and so on, such as the acquisition by Elon Musk of Twitter. It's not a financial transaction as much as it is for the purpose it'll have controls. And when we have the conflicts, such as with Disney and DeSantis in Florida, and those political ideologies, it's the belief that economics has got to fall within that agenda. That'll have very big implications, I think.
Before we continue, help us clicking that YouTube like button and subscribe now to our channel. This shows the algorithm that you valued this information. And it helps us spread that message. Sharing is caring. And now, let's continue.
I have bad news for you. If you're not rich by now, you're screwed. And if you're in debt, you're even double screwed. How so, you might wonder? Well, the sad truth is that you're working your whole life to make someone else rich. The mega corporations, the banks, the politicians, everyone is getting richer. They get your money. And what is even worse, they get your time, they get your life. You are not even in a rat race. You're in a financial prison. But what could a solution for you look like? Honestly, I don't know, but I know what a solution for me would look like. It's very simple. I use whatever money I have and I multiply it with 1,000. This could make my life much easier and probably yours as well. If you have $1,000 available and multiply this with 1,000, I believe that this could solve some financial issue for the one or the other. Of course, if you're ugly, you would have to multiply it with much more than 1,000. My name is Markus Dahn, and this is what I decided to do. I decided to 1000x my money. This is not a joke. I know what you may be thinking. What is this guy talking about? How should this work? This is not possible. Well, I made a detailed video where I laid out my plan. And some clever folks might even want to look at this plan and copy it and do exactly what I do. This is just a little hint on the side. You have two options. You leave, you forget what you have seen. You do whatever you're doing and you hope that somehow you get some other results. Good luck with that. Or you click the link below the video. You enter your email address because I'm not showing this to everybody. You at least watch my video on how I plan to 1000x my money. The choice is yours. Make the right choice. Join me. See what a different future you could have. See at least how I intend, how I plan to do the 1000x. So click on the link below, enter your email address, and I see you on the other side. Your Markus Dahn.